Welcome to the session once again, and hope you're having a good time. Yesterday, I believe there was a good CAE session, so I had feedback from some of the directors. I'm Ravi V. Raghavan, part of the BOG, and I welcome Madam Panchi and Sir also Mr. Pillai to the session. This session is going to be on cyber security and resilience, one of the hot topics for the day, for the boards, etc. And welcome, sir and madam. And how do you want to run it? It's a 1-hour session. Any Q&A, happy to take. And all these videos, recordings will be on YouTube in the next 2 days. So don't worry to take snaps of that. Go through the sessions, understand better. Welcome, sir. Welcome on board. Mr. Pillai is a seasoned cybersecurity expert, part of Panchi companies, master, and madam also is part of the same company. She's on the board of listed companies. I'll have some questions, how she manages some of the questions on the board as well. Thanks, sir, once again, and welcome. Thanks all.
So basically, my introduction, basically I come from audit background, most on the manufacturing sector. I have done my Master Black Belt in Six Sigma and part of Indian Statistical Institute, Bangalore, pass out. And we have been in business with respect to audits for ISO 27000 and all that. So when I found this topic about cyber resilience and the inflect point for audit, what came in my mind is the difficulty what auditors would be facing in future, because we come from the legacy audit procedures where we have a paper trail, we have internal auditors mechanism in organizations where committees are formed and interdepartmental audits, all that they do, and it becomes easy for auditors as an auditing body. It will be easy to take references from internal audit reports, So most of the time, even when we go for external audit, the first reference point is we'll take the internal audit reports, and from there we get the clue what's going on out there. So I wanted to share some very, very common elements, because this whole thing is not about technical thing. It's not about cybersecurity technical points or policy review and all, because we are only covering about the cyber resilience as a governance imperative and the readiness with respect to resilience. So the basic difference, what I normally understand when we do an internal audit and when you do a third-party audit, the internal audit is supposed to cover 100% everything because you have enough time internally and none of the big points would be left. But when you go for an external audit, even like ISO audits when we finally give a report, we put with a disclaimer stating that just because if the report is not having any non-conformity, no NCs, that does not mean that there are no vulnerabilities or there is no exposure. So that advantage the main auditing team will have. But internal auditing is much more critical and much more it has to be much more accurate and it has to be 100%. But what I am seeing of late in the last 5-6 years from the cybersecurity perspective, the exposure levels are increasing day by day, and compliance is becoming literally tightening to a very great extent. It is literally impossible for internal auditors also to keep pace with respect to technology, with respect to the risk associated with that. So I will just give you an example. Like when you go for an ISO audit, normally what the term audit itself with respect to ISO, what used to be in the legacy is do what you have written and write what you're doing. That's the basic thing what we normally verify in audit. So even when you go to a manufacturing unit, you will find different systems have been shown as standard operating procedures. And then the auditor is supposed to only verify whether are they following the standard operating procedures as per what the quality manual is talking about. That's all we used to do. So it does not mean that standard operating procedure is 100% foolproof. So sometimes you'll find standard operating procedure itself is not written properly. But auditor cannot question the standard operating procedure. So auditing is purely about compliance of what is being documented And at the end of the day, we put a report that we found the quality manual is in place and all the standard operating procedures which are audited are in place, and that's it. So when it comes to real-time happening, like now I'll give you an example of a fire audit. So when you go for a fire safety audit, literally you will find in manufacturing units, all these fire extinguishers would be neatly cleaned and kept in different corners, and all the fire extinguishers would be having a proper expiry date, and the access for fire extinguishers all will be in place. And literally they will end up doing a mock at the end of the audit. So now the important point, what I'm trying to say here is the mock. When a mock is done, a mock drill is done on a fire safety, how the response is going to be from the team. So I'll give you an example, like normally we call it like a meeting point, in a manufacturing. I'm again coming back again and again with manufacturing point because that's my domain. So you will find in big factories and industries there is something called the meeting point. That's an emergency call out. So when there is a fire or anything that happens, then there is an alarm, there is a simple siren, and all the people who are inside the building have to evacuate and come to the meeting point. Now in the meeting point, the degree of identifying whether all have come out from the premises and safe, it differs on how in-depth you have done your preparation. In some company, they'll be just putting squares, like people will come and stand there. One person has to stand there. That is what they will do. In some cases, I have seen 45 people are there, only 30 squares are there. So that does not even verify or authenticate that all the people have come. This is one example. This is the next level. And some organizations you will find every individual has been given a number, like just like an employee code. It's for the emergency that your number is 14, and you're supposed to come and stand on the square 14. And if 14 is blank, that means, say, Miss Kavita is not there. So this is the extent by which they immediately verify who is missing or who is not outside or who is caught in the premises. Why I'm giving this example is now related with cybersecurity. Now in cybersecurity, we are all in a very, very primitive stage, and this is like crime. Normally what you talk about, crime against women and all this, the reported crime will be not even 20% of what is actually happening. Same is with cybersecurity threats. Since we run this business of cybersecurity and cyber forensics, so many complaints and requirements have come which are not reported. They don't want to report to police because most of the time it would be internal. Very recently, we had a case in Coimbatore that an exiting vice president had taken a lot of business intelligence on his laptop or in this thing. And it so happened that he was joining a competitor. Now just imagine how the risk is getting escalated to the next level. Somebody is resigning and going, it's okay. But later on you realize that he's joining a competitor. That's when the alarms hit up. And then you see whether is he carrying any of the business intelligence or the legacy information is he carrying. Then they realize that there is a risk. Then when they did all this closure procedures, when they verified, they found that in the last day of the closure, he had asked the IT department to take some files on his pen drive, and that IT department fellow has done it, and he has just carried it in a hard disk, not a pen drive. Hard disk is gone. This was reported by a junior level guy. The HR head was not even aware. Now imagine a normal procedure of exit interview, what you normally call it, a vice president level is exiting. Normally the board of directors would sit and talk about it, talk about future, past, everything, and they give a handshake and they leave. This is how it had happened. But later on, when they realized that he joined another, business competitor, the whole thing takes a different turn, and they go for the CCTV footage, what had happened in the conference room. Then they realized that he is carrying the whole business. This case came to us. The first thing what we asked is, why don't you just file a complaint first? No, we don't want to do it. Because as you know, like we have all this, tags attached to it. Going to a police means a different issue. But the element of business risk that he was carrying, and finally they drilled down to a fact that yes, he was carrying the files. And when they opened the files, it was Excel file which is basically a download of an SAP output. Normally in SAP there are only two main outputs what you'll get. One is the client, customer base, and the vendor base. Both the files he had. And he had put a password there in that. So when they asked him, he said, I forgot the password. And it was so very compulsive that, you cannot force somebody to give the password. And though the scene was very, very clear that there was some stuff happening. And finally we took the files, and when we cracked it, and the password is obvious, like it was a personal password. And here is the most important point I'm going to tell you. How we cracked the password is like normally any thing you run, it takes about, depending on the complexity of your number of digits, alphanumerical, symbols, whatever you call it, it'll keep running. But we need to have some legacy information about that person, because every one of us will always put a password either related to God or our date of birth, some combination or something. So the personal details are very important to zero in on finding out what the password is. And finally, where we actually got the crack is, he was using the company ID, email ID, and a relative password in various public domains like Book My Show, and he has also used it in Tirumala and all that stuff. When we started zeroing in, that's the time we started seeing the vulnerability very clearly, because this has happened in a couple of academia also. We recently went to the top 3 academic institution, and when we did our forensics run, we are seeing students, professors, faculty members, and administrative office, they are using the same email ID, what they are using for their access, along with the same password what they are using in the institution. This is the level of vulnerability. And that's the exact point where the entry point for any hacker to come in, because once you get a password from a public domain of your email ID, and then you get into your system. So cutting the story short, what we are talking about is the risk involved and the velocity at which it is moving. That is the most critical part. Like in the fire safety, we can at times take some kind of a comfort zone, what we call it, in a manufacturing unit. If what you are manufacturing itself is not fire sensitive, for that matter, there is no plastics involved, there's no cotton involved, you're a metal industry for that matter, then the risk associated with fire is less. But when it comes to cyber security, there is no exception whatsoever. That is the biggest, thank you. That is the biggest worries what we are doing, be it from any domain you are in. The moment you get into cyberspace, obviously you're on cloud, obviously you're on multi-end terminals, then the exposure literally becomes like an umbrella. Like there is no discretion with respect to what domain you are in. So when you talk about cyber security, I have been part of training boardroom members. For the 8 years I was part of Institute of Directors as a senior faculty. We were very surprised to see in global level boardroom, in the 2010 itself, cybersecurity used to come as a boardroom agenda. Like literally there used to be a few minutes allocated in the board meetings to talk about how secure are we, what kind of resilience supports we have. And in India it took more than almost 7 more years. In 2017, actually, board started talking about cybersecurity has to be part of the boardroom agenda, your risk assessment and all this stuff. So which literally shows that on one side, the irony or the paradox is, on one side, India is far ahead in technology, information technology. But when it comes to cybersecurity, we are still waking up and coming and trying to pace with that with respect to what kind of protection level Europe and other countries are operating. So now when we talk about cybersecurity, we really, any audit for that matter, as I always believe, audit means it's a rule book. You'll compare it with the X and come back and say whether it is compliant or non-compliant. Final reporting is mostly not conversational level. Like you see a paper and you do your audit and you make your final report. But when it comes to cybersecurity, nothing that you're going to see on paper is going to help you. It's all about practical ecosystem which is in place. And like for example, I'm sure you must be aware about the CISO thing, the Information Chief Security Officers, what the CISO position which has come, very equivalent to CFOs and CEOs and COOs. Now, see the power of this domain and also the risk associated with this. You will never find a virtual CFO operating a company, or a virtual CEO operating a company, or a virtual COO operating a company. But when it comes to CISO, you have virtual CISO which has come in now. So mid-sized companies don't even appoint any senior level CISOs. They straight away have a virtual CISO, which is again a SaaS-based service now. I can just get a CISO as a service, and it does all the routine checks on a regular basis, and then comes back with the risk elements. And then you feel that if there is a vCISO in place, then all your threats and your vulnerabilities taken care of. No, this is the exact point auditors have to be very, very careful about. That if there is a CISO, a real CISO, human CISO is available in an organization, what kind of extra layer of protection what the organization can have compared to vCISO. Okay. Now there is no rule as such, like you cannot have a vCISO. Even if you have a vCISO, you have a SaaS in place, all the digital evidences of internal audit is converted into evidences in the vCISO portal, and literally an auditor can just go ask for the admin login, go inside the system, and have a very comfort zone of feel good factor. Wow, every day they have done the routines. Every week they have done this vulnerability tested, and for that everything they have the digital evidence, and you will just find that at the end that everything could be safe. So what is the missing element again here is the vCISO system would be already pre-programmed, that would be running, and which would never, for example, take this incident, what I referred to about a vice president leaving the organization. When we went there, it was a very, very funny situation. When we went inside, we sat in the conference room, because this was the subject. I asked for the Wi-Fi. They said, my Wi-Fi password will not be given to others. So I said, good, your baselines are too very well set. And then when we started discussing about the issue, how it happened, like every computer had a pen drive, USB port, and people can just bring in laptop and take it out. There was no verification. So this is like setting up a policy which you feel like you're very strong. I will not even give my Wi-Fi password to a visitor or a guest for that matter. So you feel that with such policies you are very well secured. But then if you go in ground zero, all your end terminals are in exposed manner. So this is how in audit, the resilience part when it comes, you will have a very good feel-good factor policies, which will look like everything is in place, and when you go through all this compliances there, then you'll feel that thing. But then cyber security, that's no more going to be a helping hand for you. That set of policies can protect you. No. Now in today's be terminology or in what level we are in, it's not about being compliant about your policies. It's about your readiness to recover. Because when you do a normal audit in financials, we assume that, like, if at all a scam happens, an audit can actually find out and report that something has gone wrong. But when it comes to cybersecurity with respect to resilience, you have to assume that you will be attacked any moment. There is no going to be exception. As I told you, 80% of the cases are not reported, because our own governance issue, we have brand getting affected. Like every day you will find most of the European companies and Western side companies, they're reporting that there was an attack, there was a seepage, we lost data, but you will not find it in Indian companies. None of the big corporates would come back and say that we were hit or we were vulnerable, because they believe that immediately the stock market impact will be there, things will crash, user level experiences will go down, subscribers level impact will happen, and all that stuff. So from an internal auditor, from an auditor's perspective, we are putting our position much more vulnerable, because the risk is there. We are only not talking about it. So our whole purpose is about the regulatory intensity and, for example, the stakeholders' expectation. When it comes to a boardroom level, we have faced it, as you know, cyber security is a very expensive affair. And also I want to connect for you for a very important information. Cyber insurance is not an easy thing to take. This is a very, very important aspect auditors should know, because most of the time what we feel is any of our risk elements would be covered in insurance. But just like you go for a life insurance or you go for a general insurance, overall plant insurance, equipment insurance, a healthcare insurance for your staff or anything, it's so easy. You just go and talk to one insurance company, 5 people will come and approach you. They'll give a competitive quote. They will give you XYZ discounts and all for you to very easily. But you apply for cyber insurance, believe me, it will take 3 months for you to get a cyber insurance. Because none of the insurance companies are ready to cover your risk, because the risk is highly exponential, intangible. And they will never take that risk, because the moment you say my data is leaked, my customer base is gone, or I'm not able to have business continuity, what is the potential loss that you would report is not known to anybody. Anybody can report any figure. So cyber insurance providing companies will give you a checklist. I'll tell you, it'll go on and on and on and on for 3 months. You first send one checklist, after that another checklist will come, then another checklist will come. So it's almost like 10 people apply for cyber insurance, only 1 or 2 will get. Now here again this CISO, VCISO differences, all that will come in picture. So from an auditing perspective, from a boardroom perspective, I will say that, okay, whatever readiness that you have, that's fine, but at least let's be insured. So it will be very easy to get a board approval that let's go for cyber insurance, but it will be very difficult from an operational perspective to get a cyber insurance out of it. So this is again and again going to give us the same level of awareness that we need to do, that auditing with respect to cyber security is going to be more and more difficult, more and more intense with respect to how much time you're going to spend real time with business continuity and the risk elements that are attached to it. So here, the traditional model, what we normally talk about, the traditional models, like what we say, audit findings describe what happened and not what could happen next. So when it comes to cybersecurity, like what is the level of guess level that you could do, looking at the vulnerability and preparation level of your organization, and there is no equation or a formula to find out what is the potential risk involved. And most of the time, I have seen it in my life, because when I started my career in 89, 90, we were all told that that's the computer, which is inside the room, and there used to be specific access that you cannot go inside. And at that time, you really faced that problem that our seniors, the general managers and senior managers, they were literally adamant not to learn computer. And we were young blood, we were doing it. We used to be literally disrespect for using computers. I still remember when I made a report, first report when I made in computer, and I gave a printout, he just tore it. He told me, I don't want to read any printouts, I want your handwritten report. Because that was the time people all believed that computers will come and replace humans, like how we are talking about AI now, It's the same scenario what we went across. 5 years down the line, once that automation started coming in, the same set of seniors used to come back and say, sit in the evening and teach me a little bit, what I'm supposed to do. So this era we crossed. Same here, that auditing, everything else, be it financial, compliance related, governance related, would be becoming so very easy. But when it comes to cyber, your readiness of business continuity, vulnerability, it's going to be really on-hand experience that you need to do, from an auditing perspective. Now the siloed reviews, isolated function by function assessment, miss enterprise level interdependencies. This you would have experienced during your audit, that cross-functional audit we call it. So supposing there is a purchase department and there is a dispatch department. When I'm doing the audit, if I do it in an isolated manner, I'll go and do an audit of the purchase department, and maybe in the evening I'm doing with the dispatch department, and the cross-functional audit will not happen. So I will find that particular department independently in compliant with whatever SOPs that we are doing. But when it comes to dispatch department, you will find certain material which is not even reported or documented inside the system has been dispatched already, and it is in transition phase. So the cross-functional audits will become very important, and the same thing will reflect in the cyber level also. That end-terminal activities what we are having, and transactional level activities where the vulnerability is there. Then, as you know, the boss is giving the password for approval to their subordinates. Like when the SAP era came, literally people used to take advantage of having SAP in the system. You know, we used to tell the vendors like SAP system lock, it's locked now, so we will not get your payment. So we used to, and management used to enjoy that, because as long as you're not ready to pay the vendor on time, taking the SAP as the protocol, you are compatible. So at that time, what used to happen? The managerial level, senior manager, vice president, and then the CFO level, they will have different level of authorization on the financial side. Somebody will have a 1 lakh limit, another will have a 5 lakh limit, another have a 20 lakhs limit. So the SAP will literally run through the process of approval, and the pop-up will come on his screen, but he will not be there. So he will tell his subordinate that, use this password and give approval. So this vulnerability, you will be surprised, is happening even in cybersecurity. That you create all the protocols, permissions, and who has to be given what rights, all that you have done, running the test, everything is done. But then again, the human element, which the moment it comes in, everything will become vulnerable, because we don't follow the protocol of administrative controls. So now, confirming that control exists tells the board nothing but how they behave under stress. This is our legacy model. That we say that yes, we have cyber security in place. We ran one run to find out that out of some 146 terminal they have, 42 terminals did not even have antivirus in the system. Now, this is very primitive to talk about. You don't need a cyber security expert to come and tell you that your system is to be protected with antivirus. That's the kind of exposure that you will have. So this system will only say that controls exist. Then no number of terminals is this. Now this antivirus is whether it is updated or it's active in place, whether it has got this specific links with the APIs and all. Now the API is again the biggest risk for your information. The next gateway for vulnerability is APIs, because all these days we are blindly following API as taking for granted. Okay, you'll get an API, then you're connected, you're able to talk through between two systems and two business entities, then you are very happy. I don't have to do a lot of additional work, but that API is going to carry the biggest risk of either stealing the data or worm coming in. So what is going to happen is, our legacy system, whatever we are doing, there will be one more layer with which we have to get into the next level. I'm just running a little fast because limited time. So, yeah. Yes.
Talking about existence of crisis simulation, I know a lot of organizations are talking about doing penetration testing, as opposed to testing controls the traditional way internal audit does for cyber risk. What are your views on that?
See, what I would rather recommend to the auditors is like, there is no standard format now to give 100% okay for the setup that they have. Now, what is missing, I'll tell you. One is the auditor's level's exposure towards cybersecurity and cyber forensics is limited. And on the other side, you are facing a CTO or a CISO sitting in the system. You will all the time feel that he would come back and say everything is in place. So what is important here is, before even they get into the system of audit, like you have to run it through from their ecosystem. You may have to take an expert advice again from your end. Like now, if you really see, in auditors level itself, the vertical specific auditing has come in now. Like in manufacturing, pharma, auditing, textile auditing, like that. Now the cyber auditing experts, assuming that there are 100 auditors in a system, maybe 30 people would be having the real expertise on that. So here is the time internally when they're going to give a feel-good factor. What is going to be important is the complete system what they have on paper as an ecosystem need to be audited well in advance, even before the audit preparation is going to come in. Because experts can only come back and tell you whether the system is intact or not. That is the reason I'm telling you. Our legacy level of auditing, and once you get into that cyber security resilience level auditing, the gap will be just believing that compliance is in place, or somebody says that we run through this, these are all the digital evidences, because we are seeing that whenever we go there, nobody is talking about the possible vulnerability which is beneath, in the system. They're only believing that I'm running a penetration test, I'm running XYZ on a periodical manner, I'm providing the digital evidences, when they're okay. No. What is important is, again I'm telling you, literally you have to give that simulation of attacks, which the corporates are not ready. Why they are not ready is because it will definitely expose them. But from an internal auditing perspective, the best advice what you can actually give it to your clients and corporates that do run these kind of simulated tests. And for example, now the law is also very important. Like we are at a forensics level in cybersecurity. Like we cannot even run a test on a domain or your gateways, be it an SAP or anything, without your permission. Now, giving your permission, the moment you submit the vulnerability report, they will be so shocked that how these things are there. So this is like we are more or less covering up, postponing the execution to the next day. When it happens, we will see. But the situation will become all the more critical from an auditing perspective. The disclaimers, as I told you, in even main audit reports, the disclaimer is going to be longer now. Because just because auditing is done, let not the client take that comfort level that auditing is in place, because cybersecurity level audits with VCSO and on a regular real-time basis, there has to be someone who is monitoring from the audit team itself on a 24/7 basis, because vulnerability will come, it will be corrected, we will not even know. So if they say that everything is intact, we talk about the log report, that how it was fixed, that is also important. So in that approach, you should be doing it. See, most important part, what I feel is, when in a board meeting level, when you talk about cybersecurity resilience point of view, business continuity, will it be affected or not? That's the point. If it is a service-based industry, will your subscribers or the users will stop getting the services and they're going to fire it back on you? So the business continuity risk, when you talk about, like for example, in a manufacturing unit, if there is a cyber attack, recently you saw what happened in Volkswagen, what happened with leading logistics companies, that the whole thing collapsed. Like in airports it happened. If a cyber attack is happening, if the passengers are not even able to board the flight, because which flight this particular track is going to come in, or what is the boarding place, or where is the gate number, if there is a confusion out there, literally the service is disrupted. So business continuity, if somebody can assure, that is what I will consider as resilience. If they come back and say we are compliant, we have all the digital evidences to prove that we have done all the tests, the next question to be asked is, if there is an attack, are you going to give us an assurance that you have a backup plan? Like we used to normally tell, a backup online is never a backup. A backup technically means you have kept it in a different source, different location, and particularly in physical and hard form. Nowadays, you'll find that everything is on cloud. You feel that that is your backup, that it's the first risk, to begin with. So again, it's a very paradoxical kind of a situation. We will not be able to say which is, easier or which is more protective. But I would say, depending on your cyber dependency, I'm using the word cyber purely to do with the cloud or internet dependability. If your business continuity will be affected of your process, your own business workflow is going to be affected. If there is a cyber attack in any one element of your continuity, then the risk is very high. So now, governance integrity, regulatory readiness. So where we should not get confused is that what the governing bodies are, like again I'm giving you the traditional auditing hierarchy. You have an accreditation agency, and then you have certification bodies below that, and then you have auditors. We call them as consultants or auditors. In some auditors would be consultants to company, and somebody would be external auditors company. Then you come to the client level, then you have an internal auditors team. Now, the whole governance theme, what you call it, is how the accreditation company is running the team. They would say this is what is going to be checked for auditing. And then the certification bodies will follow the same thing, and then the consultant will also follow. So what we normally used to follow is, in your organization, what you have kept as your standard operating procedures, and whatever you have recorded in your quality manual, that would be audited. And then you give your final report. That whole pattern or template is broken when it comes to cybersecurity. Because that particular auditing procedure, like for example, FDA audit when you do, we talk about the possible sabotage by your own human resources. Like, somebody, just like the recent Air India crash, you saw the report. I don't know why that report was not talked much about media. Finally, they concluded that the pilot had only he had only switched off the fuel switch, and the whole thing is gone. Now just imagine one person's mental health condition in whatever vulnerability he is. He just decided to do this. Now what kind of auditing can help this? Same thing, now imagine that fellow had the power to switch off the fuel switch and the plane crashed. In your own organization, the human level interface, we call it a sabotage point, like you'll feel it little odd and inhuman. We would say that somebody has put his paper, he has resigned. You're giving him a notice period of say 60 days. He is the most vulnerable resource on the system. He is the one who would sabotage. Not that he is going to, destroy your digital space, but he is going to be just careless from today. And he is the guy whom you're relying on for all your tests, vulnerability tests, how we are going to be reporting it and all. So, end of the day, it is all about not just regulatory readiness and what we do as a checklist tick that you're in complaint, but it is on the practical aspects of it. So the control checker, this is the bottom line, documenting whether controls were in place, a backward-looking verification role that what we are doing will be now moving towards the survival or anything about it. See, traditional evidence, this is also very important. Again, this is what I was explaining to you. Policy level document procedures, procedure map and flow charts, control matrices and sign-offs. And here, drill records and existing outcomes. I have seen when we go for fire safety audit, the auditing agency will say we may do a mock, and it has happened so that there is a first mock the whole factory is experiencing for the first time. That's not going to give you any kind of a level. So here also modern evidence is drill records. So we have to say that when it comes to cyber security risk and resilience, how many simulated attacks have been done internally? And what are the drill record talking about? How many vulnerability you have got in? How many human in between the whole process? How many vulnerability we have found out? And performance metrics during incidents. Now, for example, when something goes wrong, like I'm again comparing it with fire only. The moment a fire occurs, the first training that is given is completely isolate that source. Cut off the rest of it. That's the same procedure we follow in the cyber security also, that whether an attack happens, let that particular portion or that particular segment be infected, but how are you going to protect the rest of it? That is going to really give you, when that is cut off, if your whole business process is in sequential order, if one part is cut off, business continuity will be lost. So your ability is to switch over on backups. Your ability is to have a plan B in place, a plan B infrastructure, digital infrastructure in place, which can give you the business continuity. That is a modern evidence that we are looking for. Control operability during disruption, escalation path clarity. Now, you will find escalation itself is a big issue from an administrative perspective. That at what point a vulnerability which is identified by a mid-management executive level guy to escalate it to senior level, and the escalation finally leads up to the board level. In board also, final escalation, how it is going to come. So now when we talk about cyber security resilience, we talk about your response is also important. Even what you're going to tell the media. Like for example, you're a public listed company. Obviously your under governance, you have to have accountability, and you have a cyber attack. Even the press release, what you are going to talk about, what is the extent of damage, what is the extent of business continuity exposure, what is the level of transparency that we have lost, by which the valuation of the company, how it can get affected. Up to that level, a media release has to be planned in advance. That is what we're calling about preparation. Like X level of attacks has happened, what would be your escalation level, or what would be your media coverage, or whatever your press release that you're going to do. Up to that level, boards are talking about. Cross-functional coordination, actually told it's more of an internal stuff. So assurance over governance, again, board oversight, effectiveness, escalation protocols, I already told you, authority, clarity. Now, when there is an attack, even if sometimes business continuity is lost for some time, you are able to control and sustain the situation, and then you are back to square one. You are up and running. This decision is very important. So when I talk about business continuity, just holding on to that fact that I will not allow the business continuity to get disrupted, I will still pretend to be I am 100% okay. That is maintaining that the business continuity is happening, but that is creating further more vulnerability. It's better to give a break in the business continuity for X amount of time, completely quarantine and cleanse the whole stuff, and then go back with a proper intimation on time, like for example, how we are going to inform the press or the media. So here also, the continuity, business continuity, how we will have this authority of clarity to decide that, whether I want to have 100% business continuity, keep running and keep repairing what you're doing, or take a break and clean off everything, and then you say, we are good to go. That is also a very important stuff. Now, crisis command structure is the breakdown instruction, what you're going to give based on the authority and what decision you're going to be taking. Regulatory reporting discipline, very similar to, before regulatory, media will be first, coming into your exposure, and what you tell in the media will automatically get into exponential level. So for regulatory reporting discipline also, we should be checking about. So it's all about now prevention to survival, because the resilience and the ransomware preparedness, see, one technology complementing another, I would say. The crypto. The crypto is the root cause for more and more cyber attacks, because crypto gives you that flexibility to take a ransom in a cryptocurrency. Otherwise, imagine if there is no crypto, how are you going to even pay the ransom? It will be anyway having a money trail in it. If I have to transfer the money, or if I have to give you cash or whatever it is, there is always a trial which we can do. But the moment 99% of your cyber attacks, the ransom demand would be on crypto. That you will be very surprised. Even mid-sized engineering companies I have seen in Bangalore, they do the digital construction model for them. The model is the most valuable part of the business, because a huge, for example, a World Trade Center kind of a building they're doing digitally, 3 to 4 years of work they put in that, all the thing is digitally controlled. That model will be only single. Maybe 100 people have worked on it. That model will have a value of probably $100 million worth. And that model, 50 people are working on a day-to-day basis. One guy who has resigned, he can get into the model and crack the model. And like that, we have faced ransom. And the ransom, when they had asked for, they related with the client. They informed the client, I have the model control with me, what you're doing. And the client will literally go haywire. They would have given you a work of probably $100,000, but the model will be maybe 100x value, and the vulnerability has increased to that level. Now, these are all the risk points where the more and more digitally getting converted. Now, the ransom, what was asked by that guy was in crypto. This much of Bitcoin you have to transfer to this wallet. Now, just imagine what we have seen in movies and all. You kidnap and you ask for ransom, you hijack a plane and ask for ransom. The whole thing is physically in front of you. You still have that way to cordon something and take the big risk and negotiate or whatever. But here what will happen, both are digital. The hack is digital, the ransom is digital. There is no trace, there is no this thing. So there is no room for negotiation, what I'm saying. When you talk about crypto as your ransom, there is no room, because even after the transaction is done, you can never trace it. So where is the level of leverage for you? So when there is no leverage in negotiation and ransom, how careful we have to be, that is the theme. Okay, now again I have to give you the bad news about depending on what is the degree of encryption we have, XYZ, the quantum is going to crack everything off. It's going to simply come and hit you, and we will have nowhere to go. I'm just anticipating this quantum entry into as a technology when it comes in. We will literally face this Y2K era. What we have faced. I don't know, most of you here may not have faced that Y2K era. When the Y2K era happened, most of the softwares which were actually running had to be literally stopped for a period of 30 days, 60 days, because it was not Y2K ready. All the business houses, at that time, the dependability on information technology and computer was not even 5%. Now today, imagine a similar Y2K kind of a thing happens, how much disruption will happen. That is what quantum is going to bring. So when quantum technology comes in, the way it's going to decrypt everything, all our procedures, all our systems and softwares will stand invulnerable. And now the new thing what everybody is working on is quantum safe transaction, and now they say it is very expensive, but you'll be forced, you will be arm twisted to follow quantum safe technologies in all your transaction, all your applications. Now that when it comes, it is like, one side you have a crypto as a ransom, and you have vulnerability where there is a human involved, which is again the biggest vulnerability what you're facing, and a quantum technology attacking you along with your regular hacking procedures is going to be like a nuclear weapon attacking us. So that is the level at which these will all go. Now this is a life cycle. I'll make it a little fast, only 5-10 minutes we have. Escalation, exfiltration, and mostly the ransomware targets will be focusing on something which you can never trace. So, I have even recommended to a few IT companies that have your own official crypto wallets in place, so that, there are certain companies, they still believe that, crypto is like a tattoo, we cannot go into that, and we will not follow this. But when a ransom attack comes in, your next stage is you will be forced to enter into the crypto world. So at that time, you will not even know how to do a transaction. Like you're ready to give the money, but you will not even know how to do a transaction. So it's good that crypto transactions have happened. One of the reasons why they adopted, big corporates in the US adopted crypto, is because they could not control the ransom that have been paid up. How am I going to account it in my financials? If I'm paying $1 million every month or every week, and if crypto is not accounted in your balance sheet, you can never account ransom. That is why now you will find, I'm sure you must be seeing in the financials, that there is a separate vertical of crypto transaction being reported, even by the MNCs. And that will be the thing for us also very soon. Again, same story, resilience level. We have very limited time. These are all operational cyber resilience standard operating procedures. So all these days, I would say 20 years back, level 1, what we had, policy compliance, period. SOPs in place, audited, internal audit reports are verified, and 2-3 documentary evidences I have given, 1 or 2 photographs I have taken on the visits, and your transaction is tallying, you're done. But now we are in level 3, I would say, survival capability. So now what they say, board must demand level 3 evidence. Now it's so easy for boardroom to just give a diktat that we should be doing it, but then it's going to take a huge level of efforts and preparation level. This confused escalation is something very, very important. That, like for example, again I'll give that fire drill only. That in some factories when we go for audit, we used to ask, do you have mock drills? They'll say yes. Every Thursday at 3 p.m. we have a mock drill. Then say, how that can be a mock if it is for fire? That everybody knows at 2:55 only should be ready. So This is the difference when you follow something blindly. Yes, they have said mock drill has to be done, and then they convert it into a specific time and date and so and so. And the flip side is what I told you, that when a mock drill happens, how do you know that Miss Sunita has not reached that particular square? That is how every time the mock should be done. Same thing is applicable for here. Audit framework. So your audit framework, this, of course, you'll be getting this slide. This should be your standard operating procedures in your audit checklist. That step by step, you start seeing what is your isolation capability. Explain to me. How would you isolate if there is an attack? And what is your backup survivability? As I told you, all the backups will be within the same ecosystem and they will call it as a backup. And decision governance. If something happens, how do you classify the degree of exposure and how it is linked to the hierarchical escalation, that the decision governance will be taken by that particular hierarchy level based on your risk. That matrix you have to check. What is a level A risk, level B risk, level C risk, and who has the hierarchical power to take decisions on that? Again, same thing, network segmentation. Now you see, everybody will say we are on AWS, period. And AWS is very expensive, they will say. But AWS definitely gives you an elementary layer of protection, and you're completely on a centralized, ecosystem where they will be preempting into, protecting the most global exposure. But that does not mean that just because you have AWS, then that will protect you about your internal vulnerabilities and your stuff. So my request to you is that I get this feeling the moment you talk about how secure, we are on AWS, they'll say. So that level of overconfidence will, kill you, because being on AWS is one thing, but then that is overconfidence. Then you will have a lot of vulnerability inside. So network segmentation, SOC monitoring, and all that stuff. Evidence-based audit standards, I told you. Recovery drill evidence. Now, for example, vertical wise, let us talk about. If there is the mainstream of business is based on your CRM. Like on a daily basis, your CRM will only decide your service level, with customers. Then you have a very, very targeted application, which will be the most vulnerable for attacks. So you have to understand in the business continuity, when it finally converted into valuation game, I would say, just getting an exposure that you're hacked is one part of the story. You will always find, the first news will be flashed by the media that so-and-so thing has happened. Within 15 minutes, you will find the counter that it's all secured. Only this much damage has happened, we are back in action. That thing will be coming in. So this is not like you put that news and I put this news. No, it has to really happen, in that level. Your leadership things will, and this is another important thing, the leadership part, that when such and such happens, how entry level, thing that has happened in the organization, finally the CEO level statement has to come in, both for stakeholders, shareholders, media, and then regulatory authorities. There were a lot of confusions in the reporting part also, that you are reporting something which is too very flashy and risky, because such and such notification that is given to XYZ itself can be held into a different level of exposure in another segment. So that is also difficult. So end of the day, this is what is the final metrics for you, the recovery time objective. Assume that you will be attacked. You don't have to say, will you be attacked or not? You are attacked. What is your recovery level? What is your backup level? How your escalation of authority is going to be? How are you going to communicate to the whole world? And what is the max tolerable? We call this MTD. What is the max tolerable disruption you are designed for? That will give you a resilience level at which we are operating. Obviously, financial exposure, this is what I told you. Medical, for example, I apply for my insurance. Obviously, the first metric is your age, and then you have riders. Do you smoke? Do you consume alcohol? What is the life life thing of your parents, like these are all metrics. If my parents have died in an early age, then he assumes that I will also die early. If I'm smoking, then I will have a rider. So same way, when it comes to cyber risk, there are no formulas. To what extent I can say that if I am out of business, if my business continuity is lost for 7 days, what would be the financial implication? There is no formula. That is the reason it's very difficult for getting the cyber insurance. So end of the day, it's all about putting all things together in one basket and trying to engage ourselves, not being overconfident, and at the same time, instead of assuming that things may not happen, we have to conclude that it is going to happen. It's a matter of time, sooner or later, but what is the preparation level? And depending on the mock drill reports, escalation matrix, this is where you can complete your audit in a secure manner. With this, I'm just closing. Any questions you can ask?
How is this MTD different from RTO?
This is purely time bound. This would be in terms of, if you want to explain, yeah.
See, when you talk about this comes under your BCP and DR, there you have RTO, RPO as well as MTD. Financial exposure is the dollar and rupee portion, that you leave it. Suppose you have date, the disruption happened today morning, let's say. Till what time you can recover your data? For 5 minutes, till your 15 minutes before backup. Not in all cases you have your online backup. Depending on the criticality of the system, either you have online backup or offline backup or in a staggered manner. So what is the duration or what is the time till which you can recover and give? This is one thing. This is your RTO. And when you talk about your RPO, till which point? Suppose let's say till before EOD, or if it is banking, till the previous BOD operation. This determines your RPO. And upon, when you compare all these things, your MTD becomes a critical value, because this MTD will be determined by your board. Suppose if it is a banking software or if it is a BFSI organization, you can say that there is 0 MTD. Or what is if it is a healthcare and if there is a CRM, let's say that in banking itself it's a CRM application. In CRM, you can tolerate it up to the loss of 1 day's data. If 1 day's data is the tolerable, maximum tolerable disruption, then your RTO and RPO should be lesser than that. RTO and RPO should be always lesser than that, and these things as auditors you please verify when you are doing your internal audit. And as they were mentioning, we who are in the board, we are totally dependent on the reports which are given by internal auditors.
One last question. What you mentioned just now, right? Isn't that the RPO definition? Usually the backup, right? How much data I can
Yes.
tolerate to lose, that's the RPO, right?
That is RPO.
And that's what you mentioned, right? The question is, on the max tolerable disruption, is it around like the holistic coverage of the entire systems together? Where
No, it is application wise. RTO and MTD are always application wise. If it is a BFSI organization, I come from banking industry. So if it is a BFSI, you have your treasury applications, you have your payment gateway applications, your core banking application is there, CRM application is there. RTO, RPO and MTD has to be defined application wise, and it has to be approved by the board. Even though it is there in your BCP DR policy, it has to be approved by the board.
Right. So the question is, like, if you have the RPO, so I said that I need an application which has a data, and my maximum tolerable is like 1 day. So I need a daily backup for it, right?
Yes.
That's the RPO. RTO will say that I can withstand without that application for 1 day. So RTO is also 1, right? What is MTD here? When I give this example, what would be the MTD?
See,
Is it more than RTO?
I'll modify that little bit. MTD will be 1 day, whereas RTO should be lesser than MTD. If a business says that I can tolerate the loss of 1 day's data, that doesn't mean that the cyber security or the IT experts should always give data till less than 1 day. What it has to be is, here RTO will be 1 hour or 2 hours. Even though MTD is for 1 day, we will be able to give the data which was there till before 2 hours. RTO should be always lesser than MTD. Then otherwise, why do we need 2 metrics? There is no requirement, na? Yes. Yes, we need it definitely. We need it because there has to be a leverage which is given by the board to the business. That is the business decision, but this is an IT decision, IT operation.
Some of the regulators even go one step above, for example, in Singapore, they even bring in a integrated sort of TRPs, technology recovery.
Yes, there are European standards differ.
It's not RTO, it's even different. It's not RTO. So, because that you talk about the application, right? They go one step ahead to look at the infrastructure level also.
Yes, even though it is application oriented, inside like he's mentioning in MAS, in MAS there is a regulation like this, like infrastructure, networking and your software application. For each thing there has to be defined RTOs and MTDs. Not only these things, not only MTD or RTO, even your financial exposure also has to be defined. And this RTO and financial exposure is related, directly proportional. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, just one more question. So you brought up quantum technology,
Yes.
right? Until now we have spoken about BCP DR, essentially your cybersecurity recovery, mitigation, etc. Let's talk about prevention, right? With quantum decryption, again, a very real reality, right? In the forward scenario. How do we address, because most of our encryption right now, most of our protection, right, happens on a non-quantum level, right? If quantum decryption is a reality, right, security becomes a very untenable scenario. If we talk about, for instance, right now Microsoft with regards to endpoint security, right, they are exploring quantum encryption to identify, single source, what is the root source of any attack, right? That is just the beginning. But because of their stature, their, again, technical stature as well as economical stature, right, they can do that. But on an everyday basis for all other organizations, right, what is the scenario when it comes to cybersecurity posture in the world of quantum decryption?
See, this is exactly what I told. It's very scary. That I will compare it with nuclear weapon. That if nuclear weapon gets into the hands of common man, then what happens? So quantum is very similar to that. I'll tell you very practically what is happening outside. Fintech. You take fintech. We are developing a quantum safe fintech ecosystem, and we went and talked to many banks about it. The first question what they asked is, it's going to be very expensive. So we were literally laughing within ourselves that when it comes to safety, when you're comparing cost, it's just a matter of time. Now what will happen, I'll tell you, the expensive part, be it a nuclear weapon or the most nanotechnology, anything which comes very powerful to disrupt your technology will be very expensive. So what will happen is, just because we will not have that kind of a financial ability to handle, it will take little more time to come in. But when you talk about quantum safe fintech transaction, what they're finally translating and telling us, if a transaction is about 10 lakhs, then we switch over to a quantum safe transaction. There we can afford the transaction fee. So answering your question, that is the reason I told you about the Y2K situation, when literally everything had to be disruptive, that if you're not Y2K ready, you're not going online. Same way a scenario will come, maybe 1 year, 2 years down the line, you're not quantum safe, then you don't do financial transactions. Like for example, end of the day, all your business processes and your workflow is going to have a financial impact. But the first layer of defense, first layer of quantum safety will be practiced in real financial transaction, because there is one moment everything will go. Now then you will come to logistics, then you will come into healthcare, where life is something which has got no value. But to tell you the truth, the quantum safe part is something people are not ready to talk about, because this is like, every month you will get some YouTube video or something, the world is going to end, one asteroid is going to hit us, then one date will come. Like that, quantum is being discussed about. But internally, where we are actually facing this problem is, People are still believing, we call it the cat will close its eyes and drink the milk, thinking that nobody is watching. That is the place we are in. But then end of the day, like AI, like blockchain, the hype will be there and everybody will have it. But then quantum is something which will literally give you a damage control mode on which automatically adoption will start coming in. That's where we are in.
I can understand, right?
Yeah.
We all have doomsday fatigue, right? But at the same time, is it possible to leverage the same kind of quantum security, at least on a partial level?
Partial level, yes. What I will say is, for example, I will tell you, on my cloud, I have my IP. For example, patent-related content. Only that much space I will try to keep it as quantum safe for the time being. Not my complete database of customers, complete database of my inventory or logistics. That is how I have to segmentize where my most valuable digital content is there. I will go for, this is like you have a diamond necklace, right? So you will buy, if the diamond necklace is worth say 1 crore, you will buy a safe of 10 lakhs value. And that you will keep it in your bedroom, and which will again have a cupboard, then the bedroom has to be locked, and then home, and then your main gate. So just because I have 10 lakhs worth safe inside, I cannot leave the rest of it open. But if somebody has broken up to this level, and my safe is like locked and installed there, and you cannot carry it along, and then my necklace is safe. This is like that. The quantum safe technology, it's not, the cost is again because of the speed, the GPU speed at which it's going to go. And then finally what will happen is like the top to bottom approach we always call in management, that will happen in quantum technology. The most expensive transaction or the most valuable thing will be quantum protected first, and then slowly, once you start, your technology itself has grown to a great extent. Very, very similar to your MBs and GBs. You remember the pen drives used to be 4 GB used to cost so much. Now 32 GB is not even 1/4 of that. So once quantum steps into the level, then automatically the spread will happen. But the threat is real. At what speed it is going to come? 80% of our digital infrastructure or any of our operations and applications are not quantum proof now. Thank you.